Okay, so I just want to give you guys my initial impressions and talk to you guys real quick about the climb up, because it was really good. It wasn't exactly what I expected. Okay, so let me tell you my initial impressions right away. The very first little steep climb, I could tell that there was a little bit more of that wheel slippage, right? Just like really steep and trying to put the power down in a low gear, just that little bit of wheel, right? But it felt really comfortable and really familiar, mainly because this is what I normally ride this bike at, is the 64.5 head tube angle. Initially, I thought that the bike was going to climb worse, of course, than the 65 and 65.5 degree head tube angle. To my surprise, it actually climbs very similar to the 65 degree head tube angle, and you get the benefit of that bottom bracket coming up that 7 degrees, so you don't have to worry so much about those, you know, striking or going over some of those big ledges whenever you're climbing up. So that's a plus. But the overall efficiency of it climbing in that 64.5 degree head tube angle, actually I really didn't feel much of a penalty at all than the 65 flat degree head tube angle. So I was really surprised, and I was able to make all of my normal climbs. But what I do want to mention that I did notice on the climbs is that there was a little bit more of that wandering wheel front steering whenever you get in certain situations where you're steep, you're in a low gear and you're climbing up. The handlebars just kind of want to wander back and forth. One of the things that I noticed first is that this bike does a little bit of that wandering steering that I was kind of mentioning, and I think this particular portion might show you a good example of what I'm talking about. And it's mainly whenever you get to those steeper, like kind of slower techie sections, or when you're tired and you're just spinning, it seems like you're going up the climb and that wheel just wants to do this, like wander a little bit rather than staying straight up the climb. So I think you might see a little bit here. Oh, that wasn't bad. Right there. And this climb coming up right here, it's even though it probably doesn't look like it, this little bit of a climb, it's got this right hander, and then it's kind of quick and steep to the next left hander switch back. And I think that that might be what I'm talking about, where it just feels like the steering wants to wander a little bit. See, like that right there, like whenever I'm trying to fight, whenever you're in like the 65 and the 65.5, it definitely feels like you can keep that a lot straighter and without a bunch of extra movement. All right, here's another one of those sections that is just it's a little tougher for me to do. I usually make this one, you know, pretty regularly, but let's talk about how easy or difficult it was once I get up here to the top. I do kind of like seeing that tire way out ahead of me. I don't know, that it really went pretty smooth. A lot of activity in the suspension again. I can't say that enough, because I really should have checked the suspension. Anyways, it felt good. It didn't feel that difficult. It just felt active in the suspension. I don't feel like I used much more energy, maybe a little bit more energy, but let's give this section right here a try. I'm usually not great at it. Let's see how far we make it. Oh, every time, right about there. Every time. That's all right. One of these days, I'll get that track stand down. I'll get to a point where I track stand that Continuing on here. Also, the bike obviously slackened out, so it got a little bit longer. So I did notice that going around some of those switchbacks, I did have to plan a little bit more ahead. Not bad, guys, not bad at all. But another thing that I want to mention to you guys is that I did not set up my suspension for those other head tube angles. And I think, especially after getting here and feeling how comfortable the suspension is, I think maybe I should have went back and set up my suspension, my sag points, whenever I was at those other head tube angles, because the suspension definitely feels different on the climbs at this head tube angle. And I think that's because that's what I have this bike set up for, and I never switched it. So I just want you guys to keep that in mind, okay? I don't know if the bike would have maybe performed a little bit better on the downhill if I would have set up the suspension, because you're messing with the angles of the bike, right? And the same thing with the climbing. Maybe the climb might have been that much better. I don't know. That's something I might have to go back and visit at some point. But overall, the bike at 64.5 really climbs good. It really climbs good. I don't know if I would even consider it half a point worse on the climbs than from 65.5 to 65 flat. I really think that it climbs as good as 65 flat. I really do. And you get the benefit of that bottom bracket coming up a little bit. So again, you know, I keep kind of thinking, going back to that head tube angle and setting up the sag points. I might have to go back and revisit that issue someday. But for now, I'm going to change things up on the way down. I'm going to give you guys a little bit of POV. I'm going to go down the climb that I usually come up. So it's Sunset Loop. We're going to go down Sunset Loop, and then we're going to drop into the Sunset Climb, which is a black trail. First, this is a little bit of a blue trail. This is part of Sunset Loop. Nothing too gnarly. A couple little rock sections here. First thing right away, just like I said, it feels so familiar to me. Also, the handling feels so much faster. That's Sunset Loop. We're going on to the black part of Sun Climb. Whew. Little sketch there. This is a very fun technical down. Not crazy compared to some of the stuff that I like to ride, but this is some of the chunkier, techier stuff that this mountain has to offer, this trail system. Good switchbacks. This one's a tough one to climb, that one right there. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Almost come to a stop right there. Getting better at cornering for sure. A couple of sandy spots really got to watch out for on the trails up here. I think I mentioned that before. The sand just wants to grab you and throw your front wheel sideways. So far, I feel that much faster than with the oh boy, almost ate shit hard right there. Whoa, that was spooky. My wheel kind of divoted in. Wonder how much travel I used. Really gotta stop and check that real quick. Whoa, not quite to the bottom. I did reset my my O-ring. I'm gonna reset it again. Oh my gosh, that was so close. The familiar trails are the ones that get you more often than not. I wasn't even going down that section as fast as I usually go down it. Because the last thing I want to do is eat shit while I'm making a video for a review. Yeah, I really feel like I might have to go back and revisit those other head tube angles with the suspension set up for it, because I didn't think it would make that much of a difference, but the bike definitely feels more confident on these downhills, more confident than those other head tube angles. And I think it's just the way I have the suspension set up for it, to be honest with you. I really do, because this feels very comfortable, very inspiring. Woo! Also, like I mentioned before, this is definitely what I normally ride this bike at, so I'm very confident and familiar with this. That also is one of the harder switchbacks. This trail is very fun. That was a bad corner. That was really slow. A little sandy right there. Some more sand right there. There we go. That's a better corner. Almost down here to the end of the black. Oh, sand in that turn right there will get you too. Already trying to turn your wheel, engage a turn, and you fall into the sand. Almost fell again. Oh my gosh. I'm going to Trestle on Thursday. This is Monday, so I really don't want to mess myself up. And that's the end of Sun Climb. That is a fun descent. Whew. Okay, so let's just recap the downhill stuff. It felt very familiar, obviously, or not obviously, but you do get a lot more comfort and security, and you get more confidence. And to me, it's more comfortable on the downhill, especially going down some of those blacks. And that's, you know, that's what's so great about this bike. I really thought in the beginning that I was going to know exactly what I was going to say about the bike at 64.5 degree head tube angle, and I'm gonna have to say that I was wrong on some occasions. But going downhill on this bike is it just gets better and better every time you slacken the head tube angle out. But just like everything in life, like there's give and takes, right? The bike gets a little bit longer, so you get more confidence in it. It gets a little slacker, that helps you get more confidence in it. You're behind the bike a little bit more, so of course that gives you a little bit more confidence. The bike feels faster and less nervous going over the really chunky, gnarly stuff, especially at speed. So that's to be expected. What I forgot is that whenever you go to the 64 degree head tube angle, I'm sorry, the 64.5 degree head tube angle, that bottom bracket raises up a little bit. So you're less likely to catch anything on the bottom bracket or when pedal striking, going downhill, which allows you to really kind of get on the pedals. And had I not ridden that second section, I would have forgotten to mention that you are less likely to run into those issues. Okay, so I've been riding this little bit of single track on the way back, and it's a little bit more pedally to kind of keep the flow. And you know what? actually really responds well, very well, to the pedals when really trying to put some power down, especially in the higher gears. Ooh, sand. God, that sand is so tricky. Just wants to grab your tires. Okay, gotta keep it straight through the sand. Anyways, I wanted to mention that because that's an attribute that I don't think, had I not taken this section, that I would have thought about talking to you guys about, because it was so steep and gnarly that I couldn't really pedal through those sections. But this is good. I can really get back on the pedals. And picks up good speed, really good speed. When going downhill. So just like everything though, there's give and take, right? I think that definitely at 64 degrees, which is next, it's going to get that much better. But I think the pedaling characteristics of it going downhill is going to get a little bit better. But in those sections where you would like to maybe pedal, you have to be a little bit more cautious about. Also, some of those drops and rock ledges and things like that, you know, might come into a thought or two. But also, like I mentioned in the beginning of the video, I definitely think that whenever I do set the bike up at 64 degree head tube angle, then I'm going to recheck my sag points, because the bike definitely felt more comfortable, and the most comfortable in this position going downhill. And I think that might allude to being set up, the sag points for the shock and the fork being set up for this bike. So that's really all I have to say, I guess, about the downhill. It was what I expected. More comfort, more confident, and able to pedal over those rougher sections. Oh, I should have switched gears. I got it. Yeah. Yes, sir. Might as well push it up now. You know what? This thing really responds pretty good on the pedals, actually. That little bit of climb there, normally that's pretty tough. And a low gear like that. Keeping your momentum. All right, so final thoughts. I still think that overall the 64.5 degree head tube angle is really, really good, even for this area. I do like to ride the blacks. I do like to ride the gnarlier stuff, and I think that even for the flowy stuff, that it's still good. Not as good as 65 or 65.5, but it's still good. That I think that I would probably leave it in the 64.5 degree head tube angle, because I enjoy the rougher, gnarlier enduro. I like to go faster. But if I was going to be riding with maybe a smaller, a larger group where it was slower trails, then that 65.5 degree head tube angle makes sense. But I'm really surprised that I didn't lose much, if any at all. A very, very, very little noticeable loss of climbing abilities, and that little bit of like steering wheel wandering whenever climbing. But what you get again in the downhill, just for the way that I like to ride, I think really overpowers that climbing ability. Now, I'm gonna give you guys real quick, I'm gonna give you guys my thoughts on what 64 degree head tube angle is going to get me. I think that I'm going to get obviously a lower bottom bracket, and the climbing ability over some of the rockier, techier stuff may be a little bit more difficult. But I think I'm going to be, you know, it's going to slacken the bike out, going to make it a little bit longer, so it's going to make it harder on those switchbacks. And I'm going to lose pedaling through some of those rocky, rough sections that I would normally, I'm getting a little bit up by mosquitoes, that I would normally pedal through. So we'll have to see in the review whenever that comes around. But should get a little bit more confident when going downhill, a little bit more comfortable. And I am definitely going to set up my suspension. I'm going to recheck the sag points at 64 just to make sure that I have it where I want it. And then so later this week, today's Monday, I leave either Wednesday night or Thursday for trestle, and I'm riding trestle Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and I have my mullet wheel set up, and I think that I might do some of the reviews for the head tube angle in my mullet setup for the channel while I'm at trestle. So keep an eye out for that, guys. Until then, peace out, go ride your bike. Don't forget, hit the like, subscribe button. Still trying to get to 500 subscribers. Peace out.